Joshua 6. Joshua 6. We've been looking at an important time in the life of the Israelites. They had come out of Egypt, followed the Lord through the wilderness for 40 years, and now it's finally time to cross the Jordan, which was the natural boundary between where they were and where the promised land lay. And they've gotten past that natural boundary. God has brought them over the Jordan River on dry land again. And as Joshua looks at Jericho, perhaps he's in a recon mission on his own to check out what's Jericho like. Now, he probably already has heard, but he wants to see for himself. Maybe that's what's going on. As we reach chapter 5 and verse 13, so from chapter 6, you're just going to back up just a few verses. But look at what verse 13 tells us. It says, "And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho." See, he was reconnoitering. And as he's looking at Jericho, it says that he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, a man stood opposite him. Maybe he was looking up at the wall, and he just looked up a little higher. And there was somebody else a little closer. There was someone else in his field of vision. He lifted his eyes, it says, and looked, and behold, a man stood opposite him with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, "Are you for us, or are you for our enemies, adversaries?" Let's stop for just a second. Before we get the answer from this man with a capital M in my Bible, before we get his answer to the question, are you for us or for our adversaries? Joshua wants to know who this guy is. But in the background, or at least in the back of his mind, really in the forefront of his mind, is, what am I supposed to do with this situation known as Jericho? The Israelites were going to have to conquer Jericho to begin their campaign of dispossessing the peoples who lived in the promised land already, who had built up houses and cities and planted vineyards and plowed fields and planted crops. Joshua was going to have to fight the Battle of Jericho. That's in the forefront of his mind. What is he going to do? How's he going to do it? This is a battle he has to win. And he asks a question. And the answer to the question, which, as you know, was not much of the answer to a or question, was it? You can't answer an or question with a yes or a no. It just doesn't work that way. We'll have another example a little bit later. But he says, are you for us or for our adversaries? And now the answer, no, but as commander of the army of the Lord. Now let's stop right there. No, but. That but says there's something that's about to change. You're asking me a bad question, a wrong question, and I'm going to give an answer, no, I'm not for you. I'm not against you. But here's the rest of that story. Here's who I am. He says, but as commander of the army of the Lord. Let's again. Okay, that tells who he is. I wonder, is that who he's always been? Well, if you agree with me that he's Jesus, then yes, he's always been what he just said he was, right? He's always existed that way. This is not something that God created Jesus and then put him into a position. Jesus has always existed as God, and now God has appointed him, and so he's always been commander of the army of the Lord. Okay? You agree with this? You following with me? Okay. But notice what happens next. He tells why. He says, no, but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. Oh, you think God doesn't know what you're facing? Maybe you've not even prayed about it. Maybe you've not cried out to God about what your situation is. Does he know about you? Does he care about you? Has he prepared for you? Is he looking out for you? Is he covering your back? Is he taking care of all of the details that are going to see you through to victory? You can bet on it. What does he ask of you? What he asks here. I heard a sermon this week by Greg Laurie. And he was talking about how from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible, God has not just requested one thing, he has demanded one thing of his people. One thing, and that is to yield. To yield. And that was the word he used, to yield. To yield. And actually, he was preaching on this section of Scripture. And, of course, he quoted a lot of other Scripture that does make it very clear. What God is looking for is you. And not just part of you, but all of you. And not just some of the time, but all of the time. Now, that's the way it's got to work. Don't you figure? It's the way it's got to work. When I was at the hospital this week, and I was a little reluctant to go. And everybody's laughing over here, and they know. I didn't want to go. When I got there, of course, they took vitals. And one of the things that it showed was that my temperature was elevated. My heart rate was already elevated. I knew that, and the whole time I was at the hospital, it remained somewhat elevated for me. I know what my heart rate should be in different situations. My watch tells me. At any moment, I can look at it and say, well, okay, it's 76 right now. That's more normal. But as far as the life-altering, life-risk factors, I wasn't facing anything that way that they could find. My heart was okay. My heart doctor on Friday concluded, after looking at all the tests and everything they did, all the blood work, everything they had done, he said, well, I can find nothing wrong with your heart. And then I asked him another question, and he said, well, I think that's probably a question for your family practice doctor. But he said, we are going to send you home with a 2-week monitor, a Holter monitor. Well, so if you look right here, right here you can see this little button. And if there's something that I feel going on with my heart, I'm supposed to push that button. And that tells them that I pushed the button. I recorded some sort of an event. Now, this thing is supposed to stay on me while I run, while I shower, for 2 weeks. This morning, after I got out of the shower, it's already coming off. I don't know what they expect, but it's not going to last for 2 weeks. So, what good is it? Well, it's good for 2 days, right? But it's for the 2 weeks, it's not going to work, right? Hey, when we yield to God, when we give ourselves to God, when we commit ourselves to serving God, it only works if it's every day, all day, and never quits. You say, well, that's asking a lot of me. Friend, he gave his life for you, right? Is he really asking all that much of us, that we should live our lives for the one who gave his life for us? And look what we get in return. He promises to be with us and to win the battles for us. I'll put my money on the Lord every time. And if I have a side to choose, I'll choose his side. And that's what he's trying to get across to us. This man who turned out to be the commander of the army of the Lord, he says, no, I've not come to take sides, I've come to take over. You've got to decide whether you're going to be on my side. And that's what he said to do. Be on my side. Joshua got that. Joshua understood that. And look what happened. Verse 14, so he said, no, but as the commander of the army of the Lord I have now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? Joshua got it, didn't he? Get on God's side and stop pussyfooting around. Stop clowning around, playing around. Stop doing what you're doing to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Stop it. You've got to give it all to Him all the time. I wonder if I could get you to do that right now. I wonder if I could get you to just say it out loud. I give all to God all the time. All right? Now this time I want you to say it, but only if you mean it. I give all to God all the time. I give all to God all the time. Not just words. You mean them. Woo! Boy, you're in for a life change if you're doing it for the very first time. And I know some of you must be. I'll tell you, the things that are rotten in your life, He can straighten out. And if He could, and you let Him, He would. So if they're messed up now, chances are you've not been given all to God all the time. Oh, He'll take you back. Isn't that good? He'll love you still, and that's what you need. His grace is sufficient to overcome those sins, those weaknesses, those selfish moments, those me times. He is sufficient. Well, verse 15, then the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, take your sandal off your foot, for the place where you stand is holy. That means it's set apart. You can't get more set apart than what God is from us. So as Joshua is bowing down and he's worshiping the Lord, he's done fallen on his face to the earth and worshiped, it says. And he's worshiping Him, this commander of the Lord's army. And the commander says, take your sandal off your foot, for the place where you stand is holy. Same message Moses got, right? When he met the Lord in the burning bush. And this says Joshua did so. Joshua heard, look, I've not come to get on your side or the enemy's side. I've come to take over your life. Will you yield to me? Joshua immediately bows down and worships. And when he says, this is holy ground, this is a sacred place, this is where you don't just say it with your mouth, your lips. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to live it out. You're going to have to walk it out. You're going to have to prove it by your life. And Joshua did so. Those of you who said you meant what we said, I give God all the time. from now on with a commitment and a consistency that God demands. Joshua did that. I wish there was a test that as we go out the door, we could ask each person to take and see, did they mean it? Would they live that out? Would they honor what they said with their mouth? Joshua, here's your test. Take your sandal off your foot, for the place where you stand is holy. Do you recognize this one who is with us today is set apart? He's not like you and me. He is distinct and different and unique. He's strong where we're weak. He's tough where we're sissies. He's wise when we're so silly. He's grace-filled or gracious when we're selfish. Joshua did so. Well, we're not going to get very far today. That's all review. That's just the introduction. It's time to go. Look with me now at chapter 6, verse 1. Now Jericho was securely shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand." Now again, forget about the chapter division. Forget about chapter 5 ending and chapter 6 beginning. Forget about that. Joshua is in the presence of this man of God, this commander of the Lord's army. I believe it was Jesus who was appearing before he was born in Bethlehem. Jesus, who has always existed, certainly could have come and represented God there with Joshua. By the way, Jesus is the Greek version of the Old Testament name Joshua. So here's his namesake, and he's about to have a rough time. Joshua is about to lead 2 million hard-headed bricklayers and wanderers in the wilderness into a battle against a walled city that they absolutely had no hope of conquering. The Lord took pity on Joshua, didn't he? He sent a representative, the Lord himself, to come. And Joshua was so ready and so willing and so yielded, ready to serve the Lord. And God had told him in chapter 1 of Joshua, "I'll be with you. You don't need to worry about how to lead. Just as I was with Moses, I'll be with you. And I promise I'll be with you. Be bold, be courageous." He promised he'd be with them. He promises he'll be with you. When you face those battles, and you may not have even had time to pray about them, the Lord will be there. He will show up. He will provide strength and help and guidance and wisdom and grace. He will. If you'll rely on it. If you'll give him your all the time. Now Jericho was securely shut up because the children of Israel, they were scared. They knew, and we know this from chapter 2 where the spies are sent and the two go into Jericho and they meet this lady named Rahab. And she didn't have maybe the best reputation, although some have said she was more of an innkeeper than a prostitute, but most people call her Rahab the prostitute, Rahab the harlot. But that we know that these people were scared to death of the Israelites that were camping just outside their city walls. And so they shut the place up, and no one came in, no one went out. The people of Jericho were crazy with fear. But in verse 2 of chapter 6, it says, "And the Lord said to Joshua." See, the conversation is just continuing. The Lord has Joshua on his face with his sandals removed in that holy place, and the conversation just continues. Joshua receives from the Lord the battle strategy. No, it's not. No, it's not. And we're going to have to talk about this next week. I used to call it a battle strategy, but it's really not. And of course, you know what happens. You know how Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. And it wasn't much of a fight, was it? Because really it was God who fit the battle of Jericho. Well, we'll talk about it and see what really happened. But it says, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, its king and the mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city," and so forth. But God starts off with the best thing he could say. Joshua, you know this is the promised land. See, I have given it to you. God starts off with that. I have given it to you. Some of you know Dennis. Dennis used to be a church member here, and we love Dennis. And he comes to Power Lunch sometimes and still tells me every once in a while he's still going to come. But Dennis was a strong Kentucky fan until a certain event happened. But there was a time when Dennis would record the basketball games, and then he would only watch the ones that he knew they won. I say, power to you. You know, that's good. They win every game you watch. My wife gets after me if my team loses while I'm watching. You didn't try hard enough, you know. But it was that way for Dennis. God starts off showing his winning hand right off the bat. Joshua, you got nothing to fear. You're going to be successful. I've already given you victory. This is your land. This is your place. That's what he says. I have given Jericho into your hand, its king, and the mighty men of valor. Okay. Are you going to believe God or are you not? Yeah. Well, what you do next shows whether you believe it or you don't. What Joshua did next shows he believed it. God told him what to do, and Joshua set that into motion. I used to call him General Joshua. I now just call him Corporal or Sergeant, because all he did was just pass on orders from above. He wasn't making the plans, he was just passing on the instructions. That's all we got to do. That's all we got to do. We just got to get out of God's way and let God use us. That's it. And what a thrill it is. Wouldn't you have loved to have been there to march around, see the walls come tumbling down? Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. Pray with me, please. Our Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing on our time together in your word today. There's such an important message here that really ought to strike the heart of every person, whether they're already a believer or they're still an unbeliever, that you have a plan for each one of us in which we cannot fail if we'll just take your side, if we will yield to you and your lordship. Forgive us for the times we've willfully rebelled against you, times where we've neglected to come to you, times when we doubted your sincerity, your ability to carry out what you said you wanted to do, and we just didn't believe it. Help us, Father, that in this moment we would be willing to make that commitment to be consistently all in for you. Thank you for these who have heard. Now for their response, we also give you praise in